Welcome and thank you so much for tuning in. This is Creator Conversations, a series that offers insight and inspiration and encouragement through the stories of creators who have built their businesses online. Today, I'm joined by Myisha T. Hill. She is a digital entrepreneur, speaker, author, and the founder of a course series on the Podia platform called Check Your Privilege that teaches people about anti-racism. And I'm really excited to be able to speak with her today. Myisha, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me. This is exciting.
Yeah. Um, so I really appreciate that you took the time to speak with me this morning. You and I got to speak a little bit beforehand, and um, and I know that you've got this course series on Podia, and I really want to dive into that a little bit. But can you give us just a broader view of everything that you do and kind of what your platform is overall?
Absolutely. So I began my entrepreneurship journey actually as a virtual assistant. And it just transitioned to me finding the ways that I can use my skill sets as a life coach, as a mental health advocate to empower people to live mentally well. Like I had a mantra, depression didn't win because I do live with depression. What are the
Hmm.
ways in which I can use my voice and online social media marketing to empower those of us who live with mental challenges. I would call them challenges. And so I just kind of transitioned from a virtual assistant to really sharing my struggles and empowering other folks to do so. And I created this concept of synergy, where I kind of tell folks about the myth of the work-life balance and how if we bring synergy into our lives, that it will allow us to thrive mentally well. And that's basically looking at the intersections of our life and our business, including our family, and just making it better for us. So yeah, that's how I got started.
Very cool. And so I know that on your website you've got a blog and you've written a book,
Mhm.
correct? And you do speaking engagements, although maybe not so much lately.
Yeah.
um, but tell me a little bit about how all of that evolved into what it exists as today.
Yeah. I just did a lot of work around like life synergy and life coaching and empowering people to just live their best life with all the challenges that exist with that. And then um, I had a miscommunication with a friend that led to challenging my mental health, and really looking at the ways in which white women engage in unconscious relationship with women of color. And so about 2 years ago, it was this idea of I don't want to throw people away because I don't think cancel culture is appropriate, but I do want to figure out a way to be in community with white women because if it affects my mental health, it affects the mental health of all women of color, particularly Black, Brown, Indigenous, Asian, Southeast Asian, Pacific Islander women of color. So, what are the ways in which I can walk alongside white women and help them understand that if you walk around with this inherent privilege and you're not in conscious community with women of color, you are actually causing more harm than good. And so, started with the YouTube series of interviews, created a lounge, which is a membership platform, and just started hosting workshops. I was just doing things. I was like, well, I'll do workshops online, I'll do workshops in the community. And then I wrote the book, and it's just grown ever since. So it's kind of the story of pain to power, right? Like the hero's journey. You go through this hard time. You have two choices. You can, I could have participated in cancel culture and just stopped, or I could take this pain and create a platform to create conscious relationships and community across racial lines.
That's very cool. And what are some of the ways that you've seen your work really make an impact, since you launched your Podia site and have people started taking your course and joining your membership? What are some of the stories that have come out of that?
Wow, it's so interesting that you mentioned that. I remember when I first found out about Pody, I was like, this is cool. And it was a transition because people were like, this isn't Patreon. What is this? And I'm like, it's Patreon times 50. Like it'll host my courses, it'll host the membership. And some of the outcomes have been like, wow, this is a really easy platform to use. I love how it's synced with Facebook. I love the community. I love I can go to one place and get the membership and see any courses I've purchased from you. A lot of women enjoy the community. It feels like a community space. And Podia has helped us to kind of create this space where it's not just like a Facebook group, right? It's a space where people can show up in vulnerability within Podia and really speak their truth and have a community of folks around them to speak their truth. You can do that on Facebook, but it's a little bit different when we use it on the Podia platform. So it's
Yeah.
allowed vulnerability in a really big way.
Well, that's very cool.
Yeah.
And what are some of the testimonies that have come from the women who have actually um, gone through your material or read your book or have who have been a part of your membership about the things that they've learned from you?
Yeah, a lot of people, a lot of women and men, um, and non-binary identifying folks, I want to be clear and say we're kind of changing our languaging. A lot of folks have said things like this feels like therapy on steroids. Disclaimer, I'm not a licensed mental health clinician. But it was the sense of feeling challenged and inspired to make change in their life. A lot of the testimonials are around like, this is a space for me to be real, to heal, and to really dig deeper in my relationship with white supremacy and how I can support others on that journey and be a better co-conspirator for Black and Brown folk. So it's really been words like life changing and transformational and my eyes are open or the scale has been lifted. Like it's really phenomenal. And sometimes we don't get good testimonies either. Just got to be real. Like it's not always like, oh, this is amazing. Sometimes it was like, this is too hard. Sometimes people just cancel their subscriptions and you don't know why. But the overwhelming testimonies are just life changing, transformational, um, and really encouraged to just keep living into their journeys.
Well, that's fantastic to hear, and that's really important work as well. And especially in just within the past month and all of the things that we're questions that we're really um in some ways for the first time really starting to examine in a serious way um in our nation. um how have recent events impacted specifically what you're doing with anti-racism work and maybe just your business in general?
Yeah, wow, this awakening. My membership has like tripled or like 10 times the size since I originally started. Um, and people are really curious. Like they're in the platform asking really good questions, um, accessing workshops and webinars that kind of meet them where they are in their experience. Um, Lots of questions around what do I do? Where do I go? How can I change? How can this help me, you know, shift the narrative of my life? It's the recent events has definitely caused an increase in membership, but also an awareness of the challenge ahead. Um, and it's not easy because, like you said, like a lot of us are just now seeing it. And it's interesting because Black and Brown voices have been saying this for years. And
Hmm.
it took the murder and the martyrdom of George Floyd for and COVID-19 for the collective wake up, for the collective lament that is happening in the world today.
Yeah, yeah. And I often I think about those two events as separate, but it's interesting that you kind of tie them in together. There was um I don't know, this thing that we're all going through together, I think in some ways kind of primed us for this idea that, like this isn't just me suffering, but it's me and my neighbor and people on the other side of the world. And I think it kind of shifted our consciousness just enough.
Yeah,
So it's really interesting. Um, those are my thoughts and opinions about it, of course. But um,
absolutely.
I know that this is and this maybe kind of ties back into a little bit of um, the other work that you do, but I know that teaching teaching people white people about their privilege is very taxing emotional work. And it's good and right that it's something that you're able to charge people for, because it is something that takes, I know, takes a lot out of folks. um, how are you balancing your emotional well-being, especially in a time when things are really starting to ramp up, for that emotional work that you're doing with your emotional and mental health?
Absolutely. I have the absolute most amazing support team of other educators, partners, sisters, my mother. So, number one would be my support community. I have what's called like this holy trinity. I have a therapist, I have a coach, and I have a spiritual director who all just keep me grounded in my experience. They'll make sure I'm taking care of myself, making sure that I'm spiritually centered, because this is not just like coaching for me. This is actually like a spiritual work, especially when I talk about reverence to the ancestors, living and dead, indigenous and black. Um, and so for me, it's really about having my trinity and having my support. Like I have folks who like look at my calendar and are like, no, you need to reschedule that. Or you need to not just say
Mm,
that. And holding me accountable to saying no. Um, Also preventing me and recognizing like we think you're gonna burn out. You need to pause. Trusting the pause of my trusted friend circle has been crucial to this for me in the last few weeks. Um, and I'm grateful because when we look at my July calendar, everyone's like, that looks amazing. And I'm like, absolutely. Because you all have been the catalyst of reminding me that I don't have to have the same great awakening and do all the things and be the educator. And that's the benefit of Podia for me, I think, because I had 3 or 5 courses already done within the last 6 months, already uploaded. I didn't have a very big energetic expense because we planned the
yeah.
content from the moment we joined Podia. It was all the workshops were added. The membership was planned out for the year. So we're now planning 2021 for Podia. And so I think because I also had content done, it's kind of been a little bit more easier for me to live into this experience having the platform.
Yeah, that's really great. Now, you mentioned something just a moment ago. You said reverence to the ancestors, both living um, and dead. And can you describe that a little bit more? And does that have more to do with um, your work with mental health and life synergy, or is that also a part of the the coursework on Podia?
It's a part of the whole self, part of me, the synergy and
Okay.
Cambodia. So we talk about land reverence, right? So honoring whose land we're on,
Hmm.
because this is we're settlers, all of us. Even if you own your home, we're settlers on indigenous land, and so we always want to name the ways in which we give reverence to the indigenous tribes of land that we sit on, and the tribe members are still alive and they're still dead. And so for me, it's how do I honor my personal living ancestors, like my great 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 grandmother Rachel, right, who was a slave but gave birth to my grandmother Emma Edwards, who gave birth to my other, so it's honoring the lineage of people who have died and people who are still alive, like my mother, and my uncles, and my aunts, and my cousins. And then we have Maya Angelou, who is no longer alive, but we have Michelle Obama. So the reverence piece is just an honoring of those who have done the work on my behalf before I even began, and honoring those who are still living to do the work. And we talk about that on the platform. All the
Yeah,
courses should have a land reverence or a reverence practice.
that's beautiful, and I bet in many ways very empowering for the work that you're doing as well.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
So tell me about as you were um, building your business, what are some of the challenges and some of the roadblocks you faced along the way?
Oh man. I remember when I first set up where I'm talking to Podia, I think I like unsubscribed after like month 3 because I was just like, no one's signing up. There's always been this, like, again, even when I was making courses and talking about the work, people would be like, oh, that's cool, I'll sign up. But no one would sign up. No one would join the newsletter. Um, my strategist and best friend, Diane, would have to remind me, focus on your journey, because then I would get distracted, right? There's that competitive spirit that we've all been trained to look at our competitors and see what they're doing. I tell people don't do that anymore because my own best friend and strategist said, eyes on your own paper. If you keep your eyes on your own paper, You keep going. My membership did not start to build. Honestly, we can be real, till COVID-19 started, March of this year, it started to take off. And that comes from years of being consistent,
Hmm.
showing up, having strategists, having my mom. I would call my mom in tears, like, I was a VA and I helped people build six-figure and multi-million dollar businesses, and I was only making $1.52 a day 4 or 5 years ago. And she'd be like, "You're so close. Keep going, keep going." Um, it's been hard. Nights that I stay up online, like making the sales page and making sure the triggers are correct, even when no one showed up. I was just putting in the work because I believed
Hmm.
that one day someone would see the work and invest in themselves.
Yeah, and I love that you've already kind of set us up and described some of the things that pulled you through. Because I know that for myself and many other creators, um, have been there or are maybe even going through
Hmm.
this feeling of like, I feel like I'm just chasing the carrot, and I feel like success is supposed to be just around the corner, and if I just keep working, but like but it feels like you never quite get there.
Yeah.
um and can you articulate for us again, like what were some of the most important things that really pulled you through that and helped you keep going?
Therapy. um, Knowing that, if I want to be liberated from the systems of domination, if I want to be liberated from traditional capitalism, working a 9 to 5 job and succumbing to living in that system, which meaning for me as a Black woman, that's double consciousness. I can't be my full self. Um, I would be stuck in that system. And for me, it was always remembering that this is for freedom, this is for liberation, this is a new way of living and being. And really, again, those support people and the therapists that just say, keep going, keep doing it, just keep showing up. I think that's the key. Even if it doesn't work, and Gary Vee says this all the time: document, don't create. Right?
Hmm.
Keep showing up, keep going live on Instagram. And my belief this whole time is that if I've empowered just one person, my work is done. And there's always been, I am getting emotional.
No, go for it.
There has always been just one person who signed up for a course, who signed up for a workshop, who just kept showing up. And that's my mantra. I learned that from my mother as well. If we as creators just focus on empowering that one person and keep putting in the work and showing up, that's what keeps us going, because at any moment it could change. For me, it was any moment. It just changed.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
And don't you don't have to apologize here about getting emotional. I'm all about it.
Thank you.
um I love that. And I think that's a huge encouragement for people who are just starting out, or maybe even feel like they've been at it for so long and have not seen the kind of results they want to. Such a powerful reminder that and that's always been a source of encouragement for me, this idea that if I can help one person, if I can turn things around for one person, if the work
Hmm.
that I do changes one person's life, it's worth it. and
Absolutely.
and then everything beyond that is just extra. So
Yeah.
now let's talk about on the flip side, what are some of the big wins or some really important pivotal moments you've experienced while building your business?
Um, the big wins would be um, just having people just stumble upon the content. Like, oh, I was just, on Google and I just found this platform and you seem like a cool person. I think the big wins is when people accidentally find me. I count that as a win because I don't run Facebook ads. So that's a win for me when some stranger is just like, I'm really encouraged by what you're saying. I want to work with you. Another big win would be selling out of a program. Like, we are doing the intercession course, and our cap was like only 100 people. But then we were like, you know what? Let's just go over the 100 and see what happens, right? That's a
Hmm.
win. Like, that's a major win because it's seven of us using our voices to educate folks. So selling out courses, selling out products, new members, that's also a win for me. New lounge community members, because that means there's more folks willing to live into their work. Um, Another win, this is just silly, is like when the book first like sold out on Amazon and Barnes and Nobles, and we were just like, really? Like that was such a shock. So, those those chance encounters with folks, the growth in the membership, the book selling out, those are all wins for me.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now, can you tell me a little bit more about the book? What is it about? And tell me about when you released it, where it's available, all of it.
Yeah, so the book was part of my vision for Check Your Privilege 2 years ago. Um, and it's not your typical anti-racism book. So we're not talking about critical race theory and we're not breaking down concepts, but the vision was shared stories, because when you have shared stories, you can connect to a journey that encourages you to keep going. I love stories, clearly. So I got with some of my friends, Brandy Varnado, Jen Kinney, my publisher, Nicole Luisiani, Brittany Stafford, Heather Anderson, Kara Meredith was part of the first book. And I had to send an email, let's write a book. And they were just like, okay. So we did it ourselves the first time. And then Nicole Luciani from Dirt Path Publishing, she read it and she was like, this could be so much better. So she cleaned it up. She became my publisher. And we released the book, Check Your Privilege, Live into the Work, which is a short, quick anthology series on how to live into your journey of anti racism. And so you can buy it online at Dirt Path Publishing. The publisher is out of stock, but you can get it on Barnes and Nobles, Bookshop. I always promote Bookshop over Amazon because they
Hmm.
give a portion of their proceeds to independent bookstores around the country. And you can get it on Amazon. So Pals Books also has it. People keep sending me links to where they're finding the book. It's also in Waterstones over in the UK. So you can find it wherever you buy your major books.
Awesome. And I'll be sure after the conversation here, I'll grab a couple of those links from you that I can put in the description to Bookshop and some of your other preferred distributors, so that folks
Yeah,
can look for that book and buy it, because that sounds uh, really interesting. Something that I definitely want to go purchase for
yeah.
myself. So,
And we're
um,
actually working on book two, which
oh,
comes
cool.
out in October. So the first one was Live into the Work. Our second book is entitled Lean into Discomfort. And I'm excited because we have a man participating and who happens to be a teacher participating in this next series. So be on the lookout for that too.
Very cool. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
thank you.
So you mentioned earlier, you just kind of mentioned in passing Gary V, and I think I love that, because I feel like most entrepreneurs, you mentioned Gary V, like everybody's on the same page. Like y- we've watched his stuff and followed his content, and he really does put out a ton of great stuff. Who are some other entrepreneurs or leaders or speakers who were kind of folks that you looked up to during your journey?
Always starting with Ayanna Van Zant, Michelle Obama, Oprah Winfrey, um, Gail King, Dr. Ibram X. Kendi, Dr. Krista Marie Fleming, Bell Hooks, Audre Lorde, Dr. Patricia Clark, Patricia Hill Collins, Octavia Butler, James Baldwin, really looking into the living and dead, Maya Angelou, watching their old videos, watching how they speak, watching how they, center themselves in the conversation, watching how they challenge critics. Those are the voices that I often looked up to. Um, I hope I said Oprah. All of us should
You
say
did, yeah.
Oprah.
Yeah.
But those are the voices, the Black voices that really kind of called me and spoke to me growing up as a child and even now as an adult.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to go back through and listen and write down that list. There was a few names that I didn't recognize, but um yeah, James Baldwin, one of the things that really just strikes me every time I watch him is just how present he is.
Hmm.
Um and it's almost like when he answers, he's reading a script, not in a bad way, like, being robotic or whatever, but just that it's so um, he has it. He's got such clarity of mind
Mhm.
when he speaks. I always really found that striking. Um, so we know we have a pretty good picture of your business as it exists today, and you've said that you've got content planned through the rest of this year going into 2021. Um, and you've got this the second book coming out. What else do you have on the horizon for your business, or what do you foresee in the next, 3 to 5 years for your business?
Yeah, we actually have a team now of consultants that work with me because now we're looking at teams training. So in the next 3 to 5 years, we'll have more check your privilege teams consultants who'll be going and partnering with organizations for long-term contracts to really do dismantling work because diversity and inclusion is not anti-racism. It's actually just a business strategy that does not
Mm,
address the inherent policies that mirror white supremacy. And so we're actually working on going in as a team. We have a couple of corporate contracts in the works now, where I'm not just the one alone voice, but being in partnership with other consultants to go in and kind of help organizations thrive. So that's coming in the next 3 to 5 years. Also, really seeing the opportunity to continue with our podcast and really having engaging conversations around race and restorative justice and conflict resolution, also looking at how to do this work with churches. So the church that I attend in Oakland, um, they do a lot of work around anti-racism, but how do we take this to a deeper level? And if we're doing teams training, how do we reach other churches and local congregations? Because again, that's another system that duplicates the larger systems of oppression.
mhm.
Um, and so, yeah, teams trainings, the systems training, church trainings, and really building out a team of consultants that can really help unpack this work.
Yeah, that's really cool. So you're taking the work that you've done, focusing or that kind of grew from uh, relationships with white women, and broadening that work into um, not just other individuals, but systems that operate in our society.
Yeah.
Um, that's really cool.
And even hosting, there will be modules on Podia for the teams training so that corporations have access to their materials online, and not just me or the team member face to face, but they can use the platform to access content as well.
That's very cool. I'm excited for all of that, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how that plays out in the next few years.
Thank you.
So, so I've got one more question for you. Where, if people want to learn more about the work that you do, um, either as creators who want to learn from you as a fellow creator, or as people who are interested in your courses, where can they find you online?
It is right at checkyourprivilege.co. Everything.
Checkyourprivilege.co.
It links to Podia. It links to consulting opportunities. It's all there.
Awesome. And I will be sure to link that in the description as well. And then where are some places on social media where people might be able to find you?
Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn.
Okay, very cool. Well, that's going to do it for us. Is there anything else you'd like to share before we wrap up?
Just telling my fellow creators, keep moving forward, focus forward, and you just never know when it's your moment. As Gary Vee says, document, don't create, and just focus forward.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing so much wonderful information, for sharing your personal story and experiences. I know that this is uh, going to mean a lot to our creators and everybody else who gets a chance to watch this conversation. And I really appreciate your time today. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Have a great day.